Imagine the moment when you take a breath, an ordinary, familiar breath. Oxygen fills your lungs, and it doesn't even occur to you that this is a miracle. But now try to imagine an Earth where that same breath would be deadly, where air is poison, where the sky is not blue, but deep orange, where the oceans are dark, blood red, filled with metal. This is what our planet once was. A world so alien it's hard to even call it Earth. A world without oxygen. A world where life was beginning. Yet a single breath from a modern human would mean instant death. Today we're going on a journey to a time when everything was just beginning. Billions of years before dinosaurs, before forests, before oceans of blue water, before the sky ever shone with its familiar color. We will learn what that primordial planet looked like. Hot, toxic, chaotic, and how something appeared there that would one day change the world completely. Buckle up. We're traveling back to the dawn of time, to an era when Earth had no oxygen, the hellish sky of the early Earth. Imagine lifting your head and seeing no blue sky at all, no clouds like the ones we're used to. Instead, an endless, dense, dark orange veil, as if the entire world is permanently covered by an apocalyptic filter. This is what Earth's atmosphere looked like billions of years ago. There was zero oxygen in the air. Instead, a mixture of carbon dioxide, methane, hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, and volcanic gases. The smell of this world, if you could smell it, was like a blend of rotting eggs, hot metal, and sulfuric acid. You wouldn't survive even a few seconds in such air. But this poisonous chaos was normal back then. Earth was incredibly active. Volcanoes didn't erupt once in decades. They erupted constantly. Hundreds, thousands of eruptions at the same time across continents that didn't yet exist in their modern form. A world where the sky was tinted by toxic gases, the horizon flickered with lightning, and massive pillars of smoke rose from the ground. Ash clouds hid the sun for days and weeks. Temperatures near the surface reached 80 degrees. The sun shone dimmer than today, yet the heat was monstrous. And still, there was no oxygen. Not a trace. If you somehow appeared in that atmosphere wearing a spacesuit, you'd see air constantly swirling, lightning striking far more often than today. And in this electric storm, the first organic molecules were forming, the building blocks of future life. Paradoxically, this hellish atmosphere gave rise to what would later become paradise for living things. This was Earth in her original furious form, young, untamed, boiling with energy. And here begins the story of life. The blood-red oceans. Imagine standing on a shore, but it's nothing like today's ocean. Instead of blue water, a thick, dark red mass, almost alive. An ocean resembling a giant pool of molten metal. This isn't fantasy, it's iron. Ancient oceans were filled with enormous amounts of dissolved iron. Whenever rare oxygen molecules appeared, they immediately reacted with it, forming rust that slowly sank to the bottom, layer by layer. That's why ancient seafloors became huge deposits of iron ore that we mine today. Every piece of ore is a trace of a world where oxygen was the enemy. Ocean temperatures reached 60 degrees or more. The water was murky, dark, saturated with minerals. In the depths, complete darkness and absolute anoxia. No oxygen at all. No modern organism could survive here. But life began exactly in this nightmare. Hydrothermal vents, the cradles of life. Imagine boiling black chimneys. Hydrothermal vents. Jets of water hotter than 300 degrees burst from the seafloor, filled with sulfur and metals. And yet life clung to these conditions. Tiny organisms, archaea and bacteria, hid in these extreme oases. They didn't need oxygen. They fed on the chemistry of the planet. Hydrogen sulfide, methane, minerals. They didn't just survive, they thrived. These were the first extremophiles, creatures capable of living where everything else dies. They formed the foundation of Earth's biosphere. Their world was hot, dark, toxic, but alive. Under kilometers of water, under crushing pressure and chemical chaos, something appeared that would eventually lead to plants, animals, and even humans. Life was unimaginably small. Billions could fit on a needle's tip, yet these tiny beings defined the fate of the entire planet. The first organisms. As Earth cooled and stable oceans formed, chemistry gradually became biology. In warm, mineral-rich waters, amid eruptions and meteorite rain, molecules began to assemble into primitive structures. One day, something emerged that could copy itself. It wasn't yet a modern cell, but it was alive. From it arose two ancient domains of life, archaea and bacteria. Their evolutionary paths diverged so early that they became entirely different worlds. Archaea, masters of the ancient inferno. Today, archaea seem exotic. We find them in boiling geysers, acidic lakes, deep-sea vents, salty basins 10 times saltier than the ocean, kilometers underground, even in methane lakes of the Arctic. But once archaea were everywhere, they dominated a world of heat, poison, and complete lack of oxygen. Their cell membranes are unique, unlike bacteria or us, almost unbreakable. Heat, acid, pressure don't destroy them. They were the living terminators of the ancient Earth. And astonishingly, genetic studies show that archaea are closer to humans than bacteria are. We are descendants of the strangest beings this planet has ever known. Bacteria, the first engineers of life. Bacteria were evolutionary innovators. They reproduced rapidly, exchanged genes, adapted to anything. They invented photosynthesis. They built the first biofilms, colonies, ecosystems. Their wastes shaped ocean chemistry. They built stromatolites, living mountains of microbial layers. Some stromatolites still growing today are direct descendants of ancient colonies over 3 billion years old. But among the countless ancient microbes, some did something extraordinary. They learned to capture sunlight. Cyanobacteria and the oxygen revolution. Before them, life relied only on chemistry, but cyanobacteria decided to use what was most abundant, light. They invented oxygenic photosynthesis, a process that split water molecules. They used hydrogen. Oxygen was simply waste, the waste that we breathe today. Cyanobacteria multiplied explosively, forming gigantic colonies and stromatolites. For hundreds of millions of years, oxygen reacted with iron in the oceans, until the iron ran out. Then oxygen began entering the atmosphere, slowly at first, then faster. This triggered the Great Oxygenation Event, the first global catastrophe in Earth's history. The oxygen catastrophe. Why catastrophe? Because for most organisms of that time, oxygen wasn't just useless, it was deadly. A lethal poison. It oxidized cells, destroyed proteins, damaged DNA. Up to 99% of life died. It was the first mass extinction in Earth's history, far more global than the extinction of dinosaurs. Life was killed by life. But oxygen also triggered a chain of changes that shaped the modern world. Created the ozone layer, cooled the atmosphere, changed ocean chemistry, enabled complex cells, paved the way for plants and animals. Every breath you take today is the legacy of cyanobacteria, a waste product that once killed almost everything. A new planet emerges. As oxygen accumulated, the orange atmosphere faded. Sunlight began scattering differently. Blue wavelengths dominated. For the first time in Earth's history, the sky turned blue. The ozone layer formed, a protective shield against lethal UV radiation. Life could now exist closer to the surface, no longer hiding in the depths. But oxygen also destroyed methane, a powerful greenhouse gas, plunging Earth into global glaciation. The snowball Earth. Some believe the planet froze entirely, from poles to equator. Yet life survived, adapting, evolving. The rise of complex life, eukaryotes. Some organisms learned to use oxygen not as poison, but as a tremendous source of energy. One cell swallowed another and didn't digest it. The internal tenant became a mitochondrion. This was one of the greatest events in evolution. It made complex cells possible, eukaryotes, from which plants, fungi, animals, and humans would eventually arise. Oceans cleared. Food chains appeared. First predators. First colonies reaching for the light. Earth was becoming recognizable. The world born from catastrophe. By the time oxygen stabilized in the atmosphere, Earth was transformed. Skies were blue. Oceans became clear. An ozone shield protected the surface. Minerals enriched the seas. The first complex organisms appeared, all thanks to microbes invisible to the naked eye. Cyanobacteria destroyed the old biosphere, but built a new one, the one that led from simple cells to people. Today we breathe a gas that was once toxic waste. We live under a sky created by microbes. We exist in a world built by ancient catastrophes. Every breath you take is a story, the story of tiny beings who turned a hellish planet into a home for millions of species. We have returned from a journey billions of years long. We've seen Earth as it was before anything familiar existed, a world without oxygen, where life was a fragile spark in an ocean of chaos. And yet that spark changed the planet. If you enjoyed this journey to the beginning of time, support the channel. It helps me create more deep, beautiful, and scientific stories about our universe.